talk now about the 430 line and what that means to us. The 430 line is a line that points to the inside quadrant of the golf ball. If 12 o'clock is on the top, 3 o'clock behind the ball, 430 down to the inside. This is a visual reference line for the downswing, for the path of our hands visually and the path of the club head. We're going to take this all the way down to right before impact where our hands are just near low point, and then we quickly change direction of the golf club with forearm rotation so that we hit the back of the ball, and we do this along with the torso rotation. So great to have that level rotation working in conjunction with forearm rotation. So as we come down the 430 line, our hands get right near, just prior to the low point, we're going to quickly change direction, wham, hit the back of the ball. Now the reason that we see this apparent coming from the inside 430 line is because our eyes are above the plane that we're swinging the club on through the impact area. Because our eyes are above it, we see the club head visually appears to be moving in a circle. However, if our eyes were on the same plane as the club shaft, then we would see the club moving back and forth in a straight line. But since we're above it, we see it moving in a circle. And because we're looking down at it as a circle, we see this inside arc of the circle here to appear to be coming way from the inside, even though, like I said, if our eyes were back here in line, we wouldn't see that at all. We would see it moving in a straight line. So one of the interesting things that I had a conversation with Mo Norman years ago about this, and Mo told me that he felt the most difficult part of the golf swing was the first initial move away from the ball, because it's set up, most people are set up fairly neutral and not over here on the 430 line. The golf swing is really happening over here on the 430 line, all the way really through transition and all the way down to the strike right before we move back to impact at the last second. So what Mo had figured out was to really get set up over here on the 430 line, and I think that's really great. Anyone that studied his swing knows that he would set the club well back behind the ball, and he did that really to get things over here on the 430 line so he didn't have to really transfer from a traditional address position over to the 430 line. He kind of set things up that way. His shoulders are even a bit closed, and I've incorporated that into my golf swing also, and it's been invaluable. So really had things right as far as the address, and starting over here, closed shoulders a bit, club back, and getting himself ready for the 430 line. What a lot of people do, however, is they'll start to think of the backswing also on the 430 line, and what happens is when you do that, the club has a tendency then to cross over at the top, and since most people don't transition the club well and use the proper techniques and form rotation to flatten the shaft back, they end up just coming straight down, and the shaft comes down steep. The hands may be coming down the 430 line, but the shaft ends up really steep unless the forearms work correctly. And we have a lot of module work in the ABS course on how to slot the club and how to work the forearms and transition the club properly to get back on the 430 line. Module 5, Module 6, Module 7, the super slotting and all that. And we can get to that later for the students. But the main thing to understand is that the 430 line, again, is a downswing reference. So typically we're going to see more backswings with the club head starting a little bit away down the flight line with the shaft steepening and then flattening into transition, accessing the 430 line, so that we have a flattening of the shaft before the forearm rotation and the torso rotation brings it back square at the last minute. So it's not bad to think of the 430 line, uh, even with the hands, a little bit on the backswing, but maybe not so much with the club head. So the club head can stay, it feels like a little bit more outside the hands, coming back and then flattening. Um, However, if you're one of the fortunate ones that's a real natural slotter, I don't see them very often, although sometimes I do, and it's always great because they're really going to take to all this stuff very easily. But there are people that can pull the club inside on the backswing very quickly, keep everything really connected, and they also slot the club well at transition. We've seen George Knudson, Ray Floyd, these are examples that quickly come to mind of players that took the inside route and then also flattened through transition. So the main concept here is to get the downswing, the hand path working, and the shaft working on the 430 line, and then squaring back up to hit the back of the golf ball. I hope that clears up any misconceptions about the 430 line.